says to the head monk one day, he says, I'm meditating, but I find that you say to watch our breath, but I find that I get very distracted. My mind wanders a lot. I know I'm supposed to connect to God. I want to connect to God, but my mind wanders. So the monk says, come here. Takes him outside to the river. Takes him into the river with him and holds the guy's head underwater in the river. So at first, the student thinks, some form of blessing, some new, unusual type of baptism ceremony. But then the guru's not letting up. And the student's thrashing around, thinks he's going to drown. Finally, at the very last moment, before he literally dies, the guru pulls him up out of the water, and the guy is... The guru says, what were you thinking about down there? The guy says, I was thinking about my breath. I was thinking about taking a breath. I was thinking about living. So the guru says, did your mind wander? He says, of course my mind didn't wander. I was going to die. And the guru says, when you want God, like you wanted a breath, your mind won't wander. It's that we don't actually want those things as much. And so, as our questioner asks to stay focused on my health and my goals, well, ask yourself, if I keep getting distracted, are these really my goals? Or are these goals that in society I've been sort of indoctrinated to believe thou shalt get rich, thou shalt work 100 hours a week to climb the corporate ladder? Is it really my goal? Is it really something I want? Because if I can't remember to think about it, the question is, how much do I want it? How important is it to me? Now, that's different than discipline. And there's two aspects to this. The first is you have to really want it. Discipline only works well when it's helping you achieve something you really want. Otherwise, we end up losing content for form. We end up losing spirit for law. So it becomes discipline to get up early every day and go for a run. Well, if the truth is, I don't actually really care about my health, and after my run, I come in and eat a big bowl of Fruit Loops, smoke a cigarette, or 10. And then on my way to the office, I pick up a big bag of, donuts. The insistence, the discipline on setting my alarm to get up every day to go for a run that I have no interest in doing just because someone told me, or I read somewhere, you should get up early and exercise. It's not actually taking you to the spirit. In this case, even of health. And so when we think about our goals, we have to ask, what are my goals? What really do I want? If you really, really, really want spiritual connection, body is still lazy, mind is still lazy. It doesn't mean that you're going to automatically start waking up at 4 a.m. Doesn't mean there won't be that slight push to hit the snooze button on the phone or when the alarm goes off in the morning. But there's also going to be a whole other river of energy that knows you're fulfilling a goal. Like, for example, why is it that we can all wake up on time to catch a flight but not to meditate? If I said, raise your hand if you've ever missed a flight because you overslept, my guess is probably a couple, but very few. But then if I said, raise your hand if you've ever missed your morning meditation because you overslept, right? So it's not that we can't get up. We can. It's that for some ridiculous reason, our mind is convinced that that on the other end of the airplane ride is actually of more benefit and importance to us than that on the other end of the meditation. And what that means is that the solution is not about the type of phone. I mean, I remember when I was in college, before we had mobile phones with alarms, but we had alarm clocks, of course, and I had to put my alarm clock way across the room in the other corner, such that in order to turn it off, I had to actually get out of bed and walk across the room. Otherwise, there was no way I would get up. So you play these little tricks, but much more effective than that with regard to spiritual goals, other than just kids in school, is help yourself realize why that goal is so important. And if it's not important to you, don't set the alarm. Sleep in. When it matters to you, you'll start doing it. Don't do it just because there's a part of you that says, I should want to do this. But really, I don't want to. If you don't want to, don't do it. You know, I always say grace doesn't discriminate. And grace is there whether you get up in the morning to meditate or not. Grace doesn't say, all right, you got up, but you hit the snooze button. Grace doesn't discriminate. Grace doesn't care if you followed your timetable or didn't follow your timetable or paid your taxes or didn't pay your taxes. Grace is there for all. We get up to meditate because there is something we want that we experience through that meditation. Because it serves us, it benefits us. It gives us an experience, an awareness of the truth of who we are. And so not only is that ecstatic and beautiful in the meditation, but it completely changes how we think about who we are as we move through the world. It completely changes how we think about the world. And so that's why you get up. But if that's not yet one of your goals, that's okay. You still deserve grace. You're still a good, beautiful, divine, full, whole being. You just may have a slightly bit more difficult time knowing that. Because one of the things that meditation does is it helps us know that. But it's not that it makes us that. Puja Swamiji, my guru, always says, sadhana doesn't bring God. It's not that you meditate enough and suddenly God appears. You meditate enough and suddenly you can see that God has always been there. The sadhana is what cleans our windows and enables us to see. It's not that it brings the light. It just enables us to see it. And so ask yourself, really, what are my goals? And make sure that they really resonate in you, that they're not just goals that you have because someone posted it on Facebook that day and you thought, oh yeah, those sound like good goals, or, because someone told you should want these things, or because in some indoctrinated part of your brain you think that those are the right things to want, that you'd be a better person if you wanted those. Really ask yourself, what are my goals? And take it as deep as you can. So for example, if someone comes and they say, my highest goal is to become CEO of a company. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But then you go deeper and you say, well, all right, why is that your goal? Say, done. Let's pretend I've got a magic wand. And I could say with my magic wand, okay, done, you're CEO, then what? And then they say, well, then I'll have the power to do whatever I want. Okay. Magic wand, there, yes. Now you've got the power to do whatever you want. Then what? Well, then I'll be able to make my own choices, my own decisions. Done, yes, you have that. Then what? Well, then I'll be happy. Then I'll really be happy. Why will you be happy? Just because you can make your own decisions. Because I'll be free. Aha. So see, now we've come actually to the goal. It hasn't required me to say, maybe being CEO isn't necessarily your highest goal. It just requires to ask the right questions and take things deeper. Because most of what we think we want because of what we think it will bring us. So it's not actually that thing we think we want. Ask most people, why are you so focused on looking beautiful or looking handsome? Why do you spend so much money on, cosmetics or cosmetic surgery or fashionable clothes or whatever it may be? And what you hear mostly is, then I will feel beautiful. Then I will feel handsome. Then I will feel attractive. Then I will feel wanted, lovable, desirable, worthy. So again, it's not the physical beauty per se that we're actually dying for. It's that experience of feeling loved, of feeling lovable, of feeling worthy. And so when you're making your list of goals, there's no right goal or wrong goal, but take it deep. Whatever goal you put on your list, ask yourself, okay, and then what? What am I looking for through this? So that then you can really know, what is it you really want? Because otherwise you run around getting this job or this title or this acclaim or this clothes. And again, there's nothing wrong with those things. The only problem is when we're looking for something in them that doesn't exist there. Because my worthiness certainly doesn't exist in a tube of cream. Certainly doesn't exist in the right haircut or the right brand of clothes. My lovability doesn't exist in a tube of cream. And so again, the tube's not the enemy, no problem there. Buy them, use them, no problem. But when you're looking at goals, acknowledge, what is it I'm really looking for? Because until you know what you're really looking for, you'll never find it. Because you look in the wrong direction. It's like that great story of the woman who's on the road in the night. She's like this on the road, right? And the wise man walks by and he says, "Mother, can I help you? What are you looking for?" "Oh," she says, "I've lost my key." He gets on the ground, he helps her look. After some time and no luck, he says, "Where did you lose your key?" "Oh," she says, "I left it back in the house." He says, "Then why in the world are you searching in the road for it?" She says, "Because see, in the house it's dark, I don't have any lights. And here there's this great bright street light, and so I thought, let me come out and search where it's light." So he says, "Go back in the house. May be dark, may take you a little while, but an army couldn't find your key out here." And this is what we do in our lives. We're looking for something outside in the light, in the glitter, in the glamour that actually exists inside. That experience of enoughness, that experience of wholeness, of fullness, of love, of grace, of divine presence. And so the problem isn't the outside world. A lot of people then jump to the opposite conclusion and think, oh, well, therefore, you should not be in the outside world or have the things. No. If the woman were in the road taking a beautiful walk in the moonlight, wonderful. The road wasn't the problem. The problem was that she was looking for something that didn't exist. And so if you find yourself constantly distracted from your goals, constantly distracted from your resolutions, ask yourself, are they really my goals? And if so, let's take it deep. What am I really looking for? And the last piece of this, on just a very logistic level, as we are today bombarded literally with not just distractions of the mind, but distractions of the devices. And we can't rewind history, we can't uninvent the smartphone, and it's just going to get worse. So we might as well develop strategies to thrive amidst it, to use them as tools rather than let them use us as slaves. And we've got those tools. We've got all sorts of options of turning off notifications. Those devices have these wonderful on-off buttons. Put them in another room of the house. I mean, we've got all kinds of options. In a way, they're easier to manage than the distractions of the mind because you can walk away from them. You can turn them off. But a lot of us have just sort of given over our power to them. And this is where it's important, I feel, for us to kind of collectively take that power back. And again, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. People have different responsibilities, different family members, different things. But just make sure that the time you're spending on it is time that you want to be spending on it, that you're getting good work done, or you're in communication with someone you want to be in communication with. Just make sure that it's not stealing your time without your permission. That it's not distracting you without your permission. And if you find that it is, then just take the control back. It's much easier than your mind. It has an on-off switch. Turn it off. Turn off the notifications. Turn off whatever you need to turn off to get back that control. But that's the easy part. That just lays the foundation for the rest of the work then. Are there other questions here? Yes.
My question is actually not mine. It's somebody I was talking today that was...
It's an expanded part of you. Yes.
And what if you come here and you like here and you feel connection with this place, but then back home your family is of another religion and it's like pulling you back, and then like getting all these things, like, because you said it happened to you when you first came.
Yeah.
So I would like you to share this experience, like how can we enjoy and not feel guilty or not, like
Okay.
let go of the family background and enjoy where we are right now? Or not even let go, whatever.
So I'm going to expand it a bit. She asked about being here, being at the ashram and loving it. She was actually asking it on behalf of someone else, but loving it so much and then feeling torn by the family back home, maybe of a different religion, of a different way of life, and feeling so connected here and so much like it's right, but also feeling that pull, and how did I manage this and how do we manage it? So in life, we always have to ask ourselves, what's our dharma? What's our duty? And in many cases we have more than one. What's your purpose here? What's your highest dharma, you can say? And for all of us, that main purpose, main dharma, is to wake up. That's why we took birth, is to wake up, to experience the truth of who we are, to experience, to know really who we are, that truth. Now, along the way, we also have a lot of other duties. We have a lot of other ways that our dharma gets manifest through different roles, different duties, different relationships. And it's really important as we move through our life to ask ourselves, in what way this role, this job, this relationship, this is in service of my ultimate highest truth. Now, some of it may feel difficult and inconvenient in many cases, like family members. But we have to remember also that the family itself is its own dharma. We wouldn't be here, none of us, if it weren't for our family. Regardless of how in our minds they may have messed up in a worst case scenario, nonetheless, we're here because of them. Even in the worst case scenario, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for those who gave us birth. And for most of us, it's not such a worst case scenario. For most of us, our families really did the very best that they could do. They really tried. In most cases, our parents were young when we were born. in the midst of their own karmic package, their own struggles, their own confusion, their own issues. In many cases, they're still going through that. Parents have agendas. Everybody has agendas. Ways that they see the world, ways that they see truth. Now, here's what happens a lot. When someone breaks out of that mold, that vision, that agenda, it actually makes everybody else have to look at it in a completely different way. If, let's say, I grew up in a family that's all about materialism. I didn't, but let's just say theoretically I did. If it was a family that was all about materialism, and suddenly I become a renunciant. Well, that's something then that family members end up having to look at. And most people don't want a mirror in their face. I remember when I made the decision to come back to India and be in India rather than finishing my PhD program at that time. And Pujya Swamiji sent me back. He made me go back and go back to school. And he said, because people will always try to write off, to put down, to disregard the spiritual choice. He said, because most people don't make that choice. And if you make that choice, it's a mirror in the face of people who haven't made that choice. And most people don't want to look in that mirror. And so it's much easier for them to think that people who are choosing spirituality are choosing it because they ran away, had a breakdown, couldn't handle it, couldn't do it, that they somehow were failing. Because my idea was I was just going to not go back. I was just going to stay here and give everybody a phone call that says, guess what, I'm not coming back. And he said, no, you have to go. And he said, because if you don't, they will always be able to write you off as she ran away, she had a breakdown, she couldn't handle it, she was brainwashed, she joined a cult, whatever it was. And he said, that's not the point. If you're going to serve as a model of someone who had that and left it for this, you can't do it in a way that people can write it off. You have to be that mirror. The gentle, loving mirror of what choice people aren't making. And I share this because when we get that real strong pull from families to not do this, in a lot of cases it's because it's very, very scary to the sort of agreed upon family dynamic or agreed upon family value, family ethic of what's important to us, how we live, what we value. And to commit oneself to a spiritual practice, of meditation, of service, God forbid to work and not get paid for it, to connect to God. This is scary for a lot of people. I remember when I was back in LA after not that long, maybe I'd been here a year or two. My mom very much wanted to take me to the movies one night. And it's a long story, I won't share the whole story, but I finally said to her, I said, look, I would rather sit in my room and stare at a blank wall for 2 hours than go to the movies. And she said, what? You've gone crazy. And I said, because see, my meditation isn't yet strong enough that you can put me in a movie theater in front of a movie and I won't get distracted by it. I'll get completely distracted. I'll completely start to pay attention to the movie. And by the time the movie's over, I will have lost 2 hours of my life, of consciousness, of awareness, of mindfulness. Whereas if I stare at a blank wall, I can meditate, I can pray, I can be mindful, I can plan. But stuff like this is really scary. For families that may be very religious, but may not necessarily have this type of spiritual component to it. Or for whom the idea of you experiencing yourself in a place that is a foreign land, a foreign tradition, that scares them. Don't try to push them. Don't try to convince them. Don't try to fight them on it. Just live your truth. Because remember, time moves forward. There's a beautiful line in a poem by Khalil Gibran about parents and children. He's speaking in the poem to the parents. And he's telling them about how time moves only forward. And that they should not seek to hold their children back. But rather that they are the bow from which the arrow is sent off into tomorrow. And I love the poem, and I always share it with parents and with children who are having issues with their parents, because it's a beautiful metaphor of, yes, stay connected and realize, as the arrow, your highest dharma is not to stay in the bag that's connected to the bow. Your highest dharma as an arrow is to fly from the bow. And the highest dharma of parents is not to try to crazy glue that arrow into the bow and to not let go, but to let go. Knowing that we've given our children the values, the ethics, the sanskaras, that we've given them all we can. And now it's time for them to soar off into time, into tomorrow. And so as arrows, it's important for us not to lose that opportunity just because the bow doesn't necessarily want us to. But it's also important to love that bow and to stay connected and in love to move forth into your truth. And the truth is a magnet. And whether it's your parents, your family, your friends, your community, it will attract people, it will hold them. Not all of them, but those who are meant to be there along your path. And you'll find your way. Just stay anchored in your truth. And the way will open, the way will appear, you'll create that way. And you'll be that magnet also for so many people to start to experience their truth as well. I had so many people in the beginning tell me I was completely crazy. And so many now saying, oh my God, we want to come, we want to come. So many come already. But it takes time. have a